an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Magicians, Season 5, Episode 11, Be the Hyman. In this episode, I am absolutely loving Marina suddenly being good. And I'm tiny bit devastated that they undo that already. Because I just kind of wanted to like muddle along with that Marina because it's hilarious and really weird. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Jessie for commissioning this episode. Jessie is up in the chat right now. What's up, Jessie? And Fernando's here. Hello, Fernando. Yeah, guys. So hear me out. This thing with Marina. Now, look, I understand why they had to do what they had to do, because good Marina can't lie, right? That's the whole thing. But let's just say that we had good Marina, who had for some reason to pretend to be bad Marina. Have you guys ever tried to watch a good person pretending to be a not good person? It's awful. It's really funny. It's something that, like, when I say, have you ever seen somebody try to do that? What I keep thinking of is a role-playing game that I played with a friend, and she was like pegged as having to do something like terrible in a scene by our team. She like had to choose, and she couldn't do it because it was too awful, even though it was fiction. And she was just like, this is so mean. It's such a mean thing to say, and it's such a mean thing to do. And I think about that with something like, and I would have really enjoyed good Marina having to pretend for some reason that she was not good. But instead, we have bad Marina trying to pretend to be good Marina. And I would love to talk to her a little bit more about what it felt like, because I don't know if she's like attempting to access memories of how she felt when she was still under the spell that made her better, or if she's whole cloth trying to invent a thing because it, like, none of those memories resonate or mean anything to her, or maybe they're not clear. I don't know. But I am very curious. Pardon me. I'm going to move my mic a tiny bit here. I'm sorry, because I know that it's a tiny movement on my end, but it sounds like fucking thunder rolling on your end. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself talking about Marina, because that's not until like way later in the episode. It turns out, by the way, my whole thing with like the world seed does seem to be what the crew has decided they are going to try and do. It's just, it's so much more messy, because I sort of thought it was going to be a temporary measure. I did throw out there, like, I guess you could make a new Fillory. And honestly, I'm not sure the capability of this world seed. I would, if they are able to just make a new Fillory. I mean, the main thing is somebody brings up a point that had not occurred to me, was what happens to magic, because the wellspring for all magic is in Fillory. And I gotta admit, y'all, I forgot about that. I forgot about it because, let's be honest, it's a weird thing. It's kind of strange that there is a wellspring for magic in the first place. It's kind of strange that the wellspring exists somewhere specific and isn't like not a hypothetical, but like more of a, what's the word I want? Metaphysical thing. And it feels like the fact that the wellspring was able to be tampered with the ways that it has been in the past, that just feels like a real Achilles heel And I am not sure, because I would say, if it weren't for the things that we have seen in the past, not to worry about it. It'll probably work itself out. But that doesn't ever happen. That's not how this universe works. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer. And what our team is on the quest to do now is basically, we're just going to let Fillory die, and we're going to escort all of the people out. But the actual land itself will be destroyed and taken over by the takers, right? That's their plan. And I got to admit, y'all, I don't understand. And I know that it's because of the story, but I just don't understand why Hades won't help them with this. It just feels really shitty, dude. You're about to just let an entire world be overrun because you don't feel like it. When I have no doubt at all that were Hades to turn up and snap his fucking fingers, all of these takers would go right back down the drain. He could slam the door shut, and he could grab the fucking Dark King and drag him down to the underworld, and we would be done. But instead, he's putting this on all these humans, and for why? Because he likes mess? Is he a Marie Kondo type? I just feel like this dude has just made a mess and refuses to acknowledge that it is his. And I've really had it with guys like this. And he's just on my bad side, man. He really is. And the one saving grace for Hades is the fact that the actor portraying him is excellent. Otherwise, Hades can get lost. Hades can get fucked, man. Y'all suck. All y'all gods. What are you even fucking here for? Honestly, what is the point of them? They don't do anything worthwhile. All they do is make up idiotic rules with fucking arbitrary, loopholes or caveats. And then they just bounce and go on vacation or hide in the woods forever and refuse to do their jobs. These gods are really, that's what we should be focusing on here, is killing all of them. Because they are providing nothing of value. You know, I feel like if we just found a way to get the system in place to replace Hades doesn't seem to be super great at his job. I have a hard time believing that anybody else wouldn't also be able to pull off and do what Hades has been doing, because it doesn't seem like he's that invested. So now that I've gone off and said that we should kill God, I guess we can start the episode. So we have a scene between Margot and Josh that starts everything off. So she puts things in a different light than what I expected. I had thought that the takers coming through the door was basically accidental. That the Dark King was opening the door and they were coming through, but he was trying to get his lover through, and the takers were just sort of an accident. But what she's saying is that he is very purposely trying to pull all of the takers out of their world because they're in the way. He's essentially trying to siphon off the barrier, which makes a lot more sense than just it being like a pure accident, I guess. But it's taking such a long time. Reminder, guys, it's been 300 years there. And I still don't really know. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. The thing with the fairies and them being targeted, that had nothing to do with anything. Am I wrong about that? That was just that one dude who was a corrupt advisor to the king, and he had his own personal prejudice and had created sort of whole cloth this campaign against the Fae. But that doesn't have anything to do with what the Dark King is attempting. Am I wrong? I don't know if you can tell me that, actually. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but it feels like that actually turns out to not be relevant to the main plot. And I had kind of been waiting for the link up between the Fae and the Takers, and I'm feeling a little bit bummed that there isn't one, and it just turns out that, oh yeah, well, we just had this one racist guy and we just needed to get rid of him, but now that he's gone, everything's fine. Is it? Like, are we just dropping that? It's not a big deal, really, but it just does feel like sort of a distraction that didn't need to be there, considering this show has a whole lot happening. And that's one of the only complaints that I tend to consistently have, is that they will throw extra stuff on that grill that does not need to be there. And this feels like one of those things. Now, I may be proven wrong and it might come up later and actually be relevant. But it is sort of weird to me that, like, we fell into that trap that especially white people can when they're writing a thing where we're like, oh yeah, there's like the systemic oppression that's definitely happening, but you just get rid of that one big bad guy and then the whole rest of it will just go away. And if that's what it is, I'll be a bit disappointed, because if this man created, and he isn't like the Dark King. He doesn't live for 300 years. So I don't know how long this has been going on. But if this guy created this hatred for fairies to the point where they were able to just hunt them the way that they seemed to, there are still going to be people around who have that viewpoint and who are going to try and continue this bullshit. But, you know, what are you going to do? So anyway, she then tells Josh he was trying to use you as a human smallpox blanket to kill the Takers. Oh, right. There was a reason he sent Josh down there. Can I tell y'all? I forgot all about that part. I kind of thought, oh yeah, he just wanted to get rid of Josh, but he could have just killed Josh. And he doesn't just kill him, and he gives Josh an amulet. That does kill Taker. I didn't even think of it. I forgot all about that part, and thank you very much for the little recap at the start of the episode, writers. But also, I do feel like when you need to do this kind of recap, it indicates to me that things weren't super coherent. But, yeah, I just didn't quite realize that that was what he was trying to do. So Josh is like, what he's doing is like asking what the fuck is going on with Julia. And he says, I thought contraception wards were supposed to be basically like impregnable, lol. And she says, don't worry, my uterus is on lock. And he says, right, because a weird werewolf baby would be, yikes, but potentially very cute. And she says, fucking adorable, as she shoves her eyeball back in her socket. Someday, but not now. She says someday, and you can see the look on his face when she says someday. He gets so excited. He really didn't expect her to say that. And finally she says, besides, I thought we were done. And looks at him in this way. And he's like, well, I guess that you like almost, went bonkers because of giving me your eyeball. So I think we're probably square. And she says, can we skip to the reunion banging? And he kind of does one of those little faces, and they head off as she tells him, you're wearing 3 rubbers, which honestly, good call. Like, there's nothing like this kind of thing happening to a friend of yours to make you absolutely fucking paranoid. So we go to the conversation between Julia and Penny. And this is a tough one. He asks, have you thought about what this means for us? And she says, what do you want it to mean? And I appreciated him basically being like, I don't think that we need to get back together. The reasons that we broke up were really good reasons that hold up, in my opinion. But I also am not going to like not be around because my dad did that and it sucked. So I'm going to be here and like help. And at this point, Alice jumps in and says Elliot and Fen in the elevator just collapsed. And I love when she comes and tells him that. And fucking Elliot basically just rolls his eyes like, what the fuck? Again, another thing. And then we're suddenly in what looks like Fillory. And Elliot's walking around looking very disoriented and just a bit of a mess. Fen pops up. And Elliot says, "Oh, it's you," when he sees Fen. Now, guys, what has happened? I feel like this season has decided to treat Fen in a really contemptuous manner that has not been what we have seen of Fen in previous seasons. I don't really understand when Fen became the like Todd of Fillory, but it's bothering me. And it's been bothering me a little bit with how like goofy. I mean, she's always been goofy, but I feel like they're really leaning on her being particularly silly in a way that feels like childish. And it's a bit too much. It doesn't feel real to me. It doesn't feel like Fen. She has been a little bit like immature and stuff, and, you know, had her understandings of things based on the weird magical world of Fillory. But there, like I said, the word contempt comes to mind, the way that they seem to be writing her. And I am not really here for it, and I don't know what happened here. Am I alone in this? It just feels kind of like, it feels kind of sudden. It feels mean-spirited in a way that, like, you know, this moment when Elliot says, "Oh, it's you," is sort of like mean in a way that I don't want to think Elliot still will be to somebody that he cares about anymore. So I'm like, does he just not care about her? I don't think it's that simple. But I gotta be straight with y'all. I didn't like how this episode sort of seemed to hinge on that with her. And he says something later about how, "I'm sorry we're treating you like the friend that we only invite to trivia night." And the joke there is supposed to be that she's the one who lived in Fillory and knows the answers to a bunch of stuff. And so they brought her along because of her knowledge of Fillory and being able to like provide that for them. But that's not all it is. She is just treated as sort of a non-character now. And she has been a bit of a clincher previously. And we got 3 episodes before we're done with this show. And what is it she's supposed to be like? I just don't really understand when this happened or when the writers decided that they were going to treat her as a bit of like a joke. And I'm a bit sad about it because I like having a character who is like hyper feminine and emotional and good-hearted, still being capable. It's not something that you see very often. And I was enjoying that with Fen. I found her lovable in that way. But they've turned her from being that to being silly in a way that's like not really contributing anything. I don't get why. I just feel like it's sort of easy in a way that isn't what I would expect this show to do by now. Like, she's been around long enough that we should really feel like we've got a lock on her character and that she feels super familiar by now. But instead, I felt like I felt all season like I don't really know this Fen. She feels really weird enough to me. And I don't know. If y'all are like feeling one way or another about this, if you totally agree with me or if you don't at all, I'm interested in hearing either way, because I can't decide if this is just like me did I like assign some qualities to Fen that weren't actually there, and now I'm sort of imagining what this was supposed to, I don't know. But yeah, just this moment where he says, "Oh, it's you," his reaction just seemed so shitty. And then when he says, is this a dream? She says, it's definitely not, because in my dreams, you're nice to me. Like, again, it feels like they're trying to make it like she's the Todd now. What? Why? Todd is like supposed to be essentially useless and just kind of can just about pull off doing what he's told. But Fen is just, that's not her. You know, she's always been somebody who like thought for herself and had a very strong moral compass. And I don't know, I saw everybody else sort of like kind of joking about how naive she could be and maybe overprotective, treating her like a child in some ways, but they never disliked her. They seemed to not like her this season. Michael says, no, you're right. All the characterizations went off the rails this season, or a lot of them anyway. Okay. Yeah, just a weird thing. And like, I don't know about the, other characters, like some of them I have felt sort of weird about, but Fen for me has been the most off. She's been the one that I felt the most just like, this doesn't feel right. So at this point, they turn the corner, and here is Margot and Josh, who got transported here very suddenly, about to have sex, because they are all former kings and queens of Fillory. And Ember wants to have a meeting with them. It is Ember, right? I can't ever remember which one of them it is. And yeah, Ember. Okay. And Ember says, I am an energetic emanation, a message left to forewarn of the impending apocalypse. I have brought you here because you are the living former high kings of Fillory, and your kingdom rests on a knife's edge of annihilation. And then he giggles. And I love the camera zooming in on all their faces and all of them looking incredibly over it. So then we have our credits. We jump ahead. We go to Julia, and she is getting an examination from Lipson. And she's asking whether Julia has been having any sort of like weird side effects and stuff. And Penny tries to say that there haven't been any since the one that Julia like kind of brought on herself. But she says, actually, that's not entirely true. A couple of aftershocks, but it's really no big deal. I already put up every mental ward I know. And Lipson says, there are treatments, but they have to be applied regularly. And the only place that it's safe to cast right now is in the Breaksbill's lab. So you'll have to come down there and get them like applied there, and fairly frequently. And when she says that there have been more than that, you can see Penny looking a little bit alarmed. And what we find out later, so to jump way ahead, they need a traveler, and Penny decides to wake Hyman up. Hyman is so excited to be alive and just runs around doing random shit to celebrate being alive, which honestly, I feel him on that. It's sort of the kind of thing like when after you've, I actually had this last week. I had a really bad depressive episode the week of the election. It was like an awful thing that coincided with the election by happenstance, but it was due to PMDD. And I was just in the house and not able to like make myself do anything for a straight up week. And then I came out and went for a walk for the first time in a week. And it was a gorgeous day. The leaves had all changed while I was like, you know, in the house all locked up. And it felt just like, oh my God, the wind, the smell of the air when the trees are like, the leaves are dead on the ground. And it was one of those moments of just being like the sheer act of walking and smelling and seeing everything was just like eating a meal, that kind of satisfaction, you know? And that's sort of what Hyman winds up going into, and just holding his hand over fucking flames and sniffing at weird things and whatever. But finally, when Penny's really beginning to get more concerned about Julia, he asks Hyman whether or not his mother had any mental problems. And Hyman says nothing like that. And then follows up with, after her lobotomy, she was the perfect mother. And, you know, obviously, Jesus Christ, right? I can't get over the fact that we used to do lobotomies. Guys, human beings are a disaster. Why are we? Good God. So, Penny freaks out and he finally tells Julia the story and essentially says that, like, when he was born, the pregnancy, it started to get really bad. She was having like mental breaks and getting disoriented and like seeing things that weren't there. And you would think that it was due to his presence in her body and that after he was born, it would go away, but it didn't work like that. Whatever it was that is in him seemed to sort of break her. And after he was born, it just got worse and worse until eventually she burned the house down. And reminder, his dad like was not around. And he had to go in and out of foster care. She kept fighting to get him back. And he, you know, he loved his mom and he understood that it wasn't her fault. But eventually she went so far, so many times, that he was permanently taken away from her. And he said, you know, it was really scary, but honestly, I was more scared of my mom. And it's a really heartbreaking story that I wish we had gotten a bit earlier in the series, because I feel like it could have given a bit more insight on Penny. Having a parent that suffers from something like that, where you know it's not their fault, but also you never got to experience feeling safe with an authority figure, that's a formative thing. I mean, that's hugely traumatic and really sad. And I know for a fact that there are people in the world who live like this because they don't have health insurance. Because if you're American, nobody cares. If you're okay, nobody cares. And like, I have a very close friend whose mother wound up being committed, and she didn't tell anyone. Her mother didn't say that she had a daughter, and she did not tell anybody that her mother had been committed because she did not want to be put in foster care. So she lived by herself for, I think, like 3 weeks of 8th grade. No father in the picture. Mother gone. Cooking for herself. Sleeping alone in the house. Because she had nobody as a support system for if something like this happened. And it led, of course, to her being the kind of independent that does not accept help. Because when you couldn't depend on your help as a kid, you don't want to rely on people. That's part of the thing, is like, you don't believe that somebody's really going to be there for you when you need them. And it's not necessarily not believing in people. It's just this deep fear. Well, what if they're not? And not from their own fault. It's not like I don't think that they are a good person who intends well, I don't believe they don't want to be there for me. I don't believe that they intend to let me down. But something could happen, and I need to be ready for that, you know? And that's just a really specific thing that happens. And it's a sort of a weird thing, because you could do that. You could become hyper independent and never want to depend on people. Or you can constantly search for somebody that you can depend on, which is sort of what I have done in my life, is put too much on my partners because I wanted to test them and see if they would really be there, really. And it's just, this is a massive thing that Penny is sharing that I feel like I wish we had heard about before. But it becomes really clear as he is explaining this to Julia why he's so worried. And Julia really understands. But she points out, your mother didn't know about magic. She didn't understand magic. She doesn't have the kind of resources at her disposal that we have. And she has a point there. But I will say that there is a fight that they wind up having later that frustrated me a lot. So there's that thing at Breakbills that makes it so that you can, in the lab, that makes it so that you can cast these spells and it's safe. And she gets mad at him about bringing it to the house because he knows that the couple is looking for this thing to stabilize magic. And she gets really angry because she behaves as if he is essentially trying to trap her by keeping it in the house. He is keeping her from ever having to go out to get her tests. She says, you said you'd have my back and instead you're trapping me here. She has to reply the treatments every couple hours. And they get interrupted here by Hyman, who is eavesdropping on the conversation, and they have to explain to him what having fucking boundaries is because he does not get it. But it's a weird moment of a fight that I don't really understand what it's about. I don't feel like it's he's obviously, it's a two birds, one stone. He's not trapping her. He's just trying to make it easier for these treatments. Her reaction doesn't feel like it's grounded in anything to me. And it just felt like a fight for the sake of creating a moment that Hyman can interrupt. It didn't feel genuine. It's fine. It just was y'all know that I'm in the best of times, not huge on romance in stories, because romance in stories is often used this way, which is to say, used to manufacture artificial tension through fights that don't really make a lot of sense or there's not a lot of stakes to them. And one person's being particularly ridiculous in a way that just feels frustrating to read instead of interesting. And this scene felt like that to me, where I was just like, what are you even fighting? Julia, what are you doing? Julia is normally extremely reasonable, and her reaction to this just didn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like if you were going to try and make it that she was having this reaction due to the baby, it would have to be much more over the top. And it isn't. So I don't know what else to think there, except that she's just being kind of a dick for reasons I don't understand. And eventually the fucking dean comes and steals the thing because he somehow got out of his jail. It turns out that the couple let him out and they are now working together, and he just walks right the fuck up out of the house with that thing, which, I figured the fact that he was just locked up meant that he was going to come back into play later in the season. But, it was a weird moment for him to just suddenly appear in their house and be like, oh yeah, the couple let me out. And we don't get to see any of that. I would have liked to see the dean get sprung from jail, personally. I feel like that would have added a lot of tension to the episode, getting to watch as he is propositioned essentially with I'll make you a deal. You do this and I'll do this and yada, yada, yada. I would have liked that. But instead he just shows up, is like, what are you going to do about it? And then leaves, and that's it. And it was a weird scene that I just felt like they didn't make the most of it. I think what I'm realizing here, guys, I didn't love this episode. There are parts of it that I really liked. The Marina stuff, which I'll get to. But a lot of it just felt really off, extremely rushed, and just kind of contrived. Yeah, I'm a little bit bummed, to be honest, you guys, with the way this season is wrapping up. This is the final season of the show, right? I don't think there's another season, unless I'm mistaken. I don't really see this being a great representation of what the writers have been capable of so far. There has been very little real emotion. And when you're on the final season of something, that's what you're here for. You're not here for plot stuff. You're here for characters and being invested in them as people. And I feel like they're misstepping here by trying to make there be this like big plot with like, you know, all this meta commentary coming from Hyman, where he's talking about like, I really feel like they're missing the learning experience here, where they're at that part of the story where the good guys decide on a plan that is so far out that they're almost acting like the bad guys. And I know that like sometimes the meta commentary thing can work and it can be funny, or it can even be sort of like cute in this, because everything has felt sort of like off to me. It more feels like it sort of links to me with like Margot recapping to Josh at the beginning of the episode, where they have figured out, I think, that they have sort of lost us as viewers, and they're trying to reel us back in by adding things like this. And it has like a sort of desperation to it. And I'm like, I don't feel like y'all want to do this, you know? Like Hyman even says at one point, I really don't like this episode of my life. And it's just, you know, it just feels like they're winking so hard. And I'm like, you're winking so hard that you're missing the stuff that you should actually be focusing on. Leave that shit out. Leave the whole fairy thing out and let us like have a little bit more room to stretch out, and let us have our characters behave in more rational ways. Let them ask the fucking questions that I kept asking about the takers that nobody seemed to even like think of or care about, which doesn't really work either. I just want things to be much more about everyone coming into their own. And with Elliot, I felt like we were starting to really get that. I feel like they're trying to do it with Margot, like sort of finally accepting that she's like in a relationship with Josh and really cares about him, and being okay with that. But it's not, I don't know if it's maybe they just have too many characters. I don't know. It's just not really happening. Jessie says the whole season is a little odd because I think the writers may have thought there would be a season 6, but the show ended up not getting renewed. Some of the stories were written in a way that could have been expanded or wrapped up in the future. Okay. I thought that they knew this was a final season. So if they didn't know, that's a really tough thing with television shows, is never being certain that you're going to be able to wrap or not. Like that's something that I think really in television, I understand that it's a gamble and they want to keep viewers. And so they like just have it as an ongoing thing that you need to prove yourself every season. But I just think it results in poorer television, and it doesn't really benefit the viewers. It doesn't benefit the writers. And I honestly don't even necessarily think that it benefits the investors either, because sometimes a show just needs a minute to get itself on its feet. You know, how many shows have we all like come to love that the first season really wasn't great, and we'll even tell people to completely skip it. And it's just, they don't allow people to sort of like try things at all. It's just so profit based and in this immediate way. But yeah, that's too bad. But anyway, okay. So let me talk about the Marina thing that I actually liked, because I'm just over here being angry about this and it's not worth it. Okay. So, oh, right. I talked about like the pocket universe that they're going to try and move everybody to. The whole thing with Alice, they're talking to her about how the pocket world would be temporary, and they would need some place to actually put people. And she says, what about the world seed from Q's page? If we could find it, we could use it to build a new world, a new Fillory. And Julia says, that's insane in a good way. And I was like, I mean, it's not insane. It just makes a lot of sense. But also, you have no idea how it would work. So that's the part that's sort of alarming. Alice says the page they stole is just an instruction manual. It's useless on their own. And they went to some pretty extreme lengths to get it. So we have some time, and the moon will keep them from casting on it. It's in a dead language I couldn't decipher. So she took a photo of the page, thank God. And Julia says that she will work on that, figuring out the language, while Alice checks out the world seed and tries to figure out where that's coming from. So that leaves Margot, Fen, and Elliot to go and find the pocket world from Umber's house in Vancouver. And they need a traveler to do this. So this is why Penny has to go and wake up Hyman. And Hyman, having been in the spot that he's in for as long as he has been, in a house that is as much of a party house as that one is, should have a lot more dust on him. He should be a lot grosser. But I do really enjoy his reaction when he wakes up and how excited he is to be alive. So he travels them over to Umber's house, and there's a sort of like sad moment where they basically just ditch Hyman and make him like, hey, thanks for the ride. Bye. And I felt bad for him. He sort of commiserates with Fen on that a little bit later, just feeling like a sidekick. And that's when Penny has to be like, you need to live your life. You're out here just like spying on people, trying to like secondhand live. And you can't do that. Jessie, I'm sorry, I didn't see you commented again. So many European shows just have a set number of episodes or seasons and it ends when the story is done. American shows could benefit from that method. 100%. 100%. So many shows that have just not been given time to grow, or they've been cut at a like crucial moment. And you're just like, really? Really? Are you serious? That's what you wanted to do? That is going to ruin the legacy that these writers have been working towards for literally 7 years. But okay, sure. Not talking about anything specifically, but it's fine. So there is a humanized Umber who comes to the door with a bit of like a riddle to keep them from coming inside. And I keep forgetting how hot Umber is when he's human looking. This actor is fine as hell. Good God. He's just like, he's got that look that I like. And he poses this riddle, which they don't really even understand. And finally, Fen steps forward and is like, she's not standing with the three of them in the doorway. So it's very clear right out of the gate here. Oh no, I forgot Josh went with them. That she isn't on board with this. And this is what she says a little bit later to Elliot also. Basically, she feels like they have jumped to the let's let Fillory get destroyed and create a whole other world way too quickly. And she feels that if it were Earth that were under threat, they would be a lot more willing to slow down and try and figure out another way of doing this. And I think that she is right. Elliot immediately sort of admits that she's right, but he also doesn't have any alternative and sort of asks her, like, do you have an idea? Because if you have any other idea, we'll do that. But she doesn't, of course. And she admits that. And it's an unfair position to put her in. Like, well, don't you have a better idea? It's like, no, but also do we need to just let the world get fucking destroyed because I don't have a better idea? Like, that's not fair. And I really do understand. So let's see. I forgot why they think Marina's the only one that can help. Because they go and talk to what's his face. I forgot his name. that worked with Katie a while back. He says they're a myth. Oh, he's talking about the world seeds. And he says that, oh, right, because Marina was the one that was like creating that heist. The only one who believes they're real is Marina. And she's the only one who can help you that I know of. So they go to see her. And it is amazing. I love this so much. They're looking at her house, thinking that there's going to be something like much more aggressive about the wards surrounding her place. They go and knock on the door because the wards are not as impressive as they expected. And when Marina answers the door, she's wearing all natural makeup, not the really heavy lip and eyeliner that she had been. Her hair is like blonde. She's got no jewelry on and she's wearing earth tones. Her whole look is totally different. She comes out, hugs Katie, tells her, I am so sorry for all the times that I've hurt you. And then backs up and says, do you want to come inside for cookies? And it's alarming. And I love the both of them just being like, what the fuck was that? What? So her whole vibe, guys, it's great. I love seeing this actress get to do something different. It's not about like even the character as much as when you get to watch somebody flex their acting muscles and be somebody else when you're so used to seeing them be the one person. And what she says is that she says, I'm nice because, this may surprise you, I made some bad choices in the past and I needed to fix that. So I went to a trance healer. And she put a block on all the parts of my personality that made me aggressive and also caused me to make self-destructive choices. And Marina, like, Katie says that's a weird scam. Or Katie says that sounds like a scam. And Marina says, this would be a weird scam. You came to me. I didn't look for you. And it sounds like you need something. So she has a point, you know. I have to say, too, what is it with this show and absolutely everybody living in a fucking mansion? Because this is the place that the crew is staying in used to be one of Marina's places. I forget who she took it from, but somehow she did. Now Marina has another sort of mansion-y house. And when we go see her ex's like living room and kitchen are the size of my entire home. Everybody's got a giant house in this series. Oh my God, this moment where she says, this has been great, but I actually have to go get ready for church. Oh my God. So they're asking for her help. And she says, like, I would help you if it was anything else, but there's nothing that I can do. The world seed is the most valuable object in the multiverse. And that's why I wanted to steal it. Until you stopped the harmonic convergence. And this is when they realize what exactly it was that she was trying to do. And she explains that people will get hurt and have been hurt in the past. And then takes them to see her friend who is the librarian that we all hated, who sucked so much, the dude. And he is like in traction in a full body cast. It is honestly very satisfying because I hate this guy. I really do. And he deserved all of it. And I am not sorry even a little bit. Yeah, this whole moment. They ask, what happened to you? Marina hired me and a few other poor bastards to rob the couple. She didn't tell us the plan was suicidal without the harmonic convergence. Marina sent us in anyway. One guy was killed, horribly, I might add. I was lucky, but now I'm stuck here, a bag of shattered bones, can't travel, with fucking Daryl over there talking my fucking ear off all day and night. And so help me God, if you wake him up, I will kill all your mothers. Honestly, Good. This is one of those moments where I'm just like, ha! Suffer! So, they ask Marina to step outside, and she does so rather eagerly. She's very acutely aware of her fault here and doesn't really know how to cope with it now. And they ask him for the heist book. And he says that he would rather shit in his cast. And he says, I'm not helping Marina, and if you think I'm going to do that, then you have a few roos loose in the top paddock. And it didn't even enter my mind that these people would think that Marina wanted the book. It makes a ton of sense that they think that, honestly, but it just didn't even occur to me. And that's what winds up being the problem later with her ex, is trying to convince her that Marina isn't in this for the book herself. And they confront her in the hallway and sort of ask, like, what the fuck were you thinking sending them in there? And she tries to be like, I thought that it still might work. I didn't know any better. And you guys know that I was like super guilty, or super greedy. They ask how she convinced Gavin to help in the first place. And she says, I had leverage, which I would love to know what that leverage was. But yeah, she finally agrees to take them to her ex. And this girl is really quite bitter. Her name is Anna. And when she spots Marina has this like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I love you so much. I still miss you. I'm so sorry. Look in her eyes. But Anna does not have that. And when they're inside, she says it wasn't just one lie. It was how it led to another, to another, to another. And now I don't know if any of it was real. And then brings up how Marina is from a different timeline, which I completely had forgotten that this was a different Marina and that our Marina died. I totally forgot about that. And eventually what they figure out is that they're going to need, because they have gotten her to agree to work with them. But because she has agreed to do that, and she is the good version of herself, when her girlfriend asks her if she's involved in the heist, she has to be honest and say that she is, and that it will be something that she's working with them on. And they can't have that. So what they decide to do is undo the spell that made her a better person. Get her to pretend to still be the better person, so that it seems as if she couldn't possibly lie. And then go and tell her, I'm not going to be involved. And honestly, she like, they try and act like they can do it without her at first, but Marina has to be like, I promised I would help you, and you literally can't do it without me. So there's no way for me to not be involved. And I feel really bad for her ex, and I like, are they going to put this back on Marina? What happens with her at the end? She, we know that she wound up getting killed in this timeline. So the idea that she wanted to undo very self-destructive impulses is a good thing, but she wasn't actually putting in any work to improving as a person. She just had a spell cast, which is very different. And Alice, in order to ensure that Marina won't fuck them over after she's been taken out from underneath the spell, Alice draws up a word as bond contract to get her to sign. And that way, Marina won't be able to stab them in the back. But the thing is, I'm not entirely sure if that counts as the same person. When you have that kind of change made to your psyche, will the word as bond contract hold up when you get a spell of that magnitude taken off you? I have to imagine it would, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there was a bit of a loophole there and she is able to break the agreement and it doesn't really count because she's barely the same person that she was when she signed it. That feels like the sort of thing that would happen in other fiction. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Again, I'm really sad because I would like to see more of this good Marina because it's so hilarious and weird. But I think that is the last we see of her is her attempting to pretend to be the good version of herself. I promise I won't have anything to do with robbing the couple. If you give the book to Katie and Alice, I'll never see it again. The whole thing with her in these clothes, I can't imagine, like, when they leave, I bet she's going to be really, like, eager to get changed and everything. And this whole thing is so... The heist book says all good things on the front, and it's like a unicorn in front of a castle, and it is with the princess. This heist book is honestly pretty great. I would like it. I would like it just as like a journal or something to draw in. Her winking at Katie is so uncomfortable. And she decides to try for another, like, go with her ex and keep on pretending to be the better Marina. And a part of me is like, I'm sort of rooting for her, weirdly. Because her ex would not have given her another chance if it weren't for the fact that she had this spell on her. And maybe, just maybe, Marina will actually try and make the most of an opportunity that she wouldn't have gotten otherwise to, like, do better. But I don't know. I'm curious about it, though. I won't lie. I'm just like, Marina's enjoyable. You know, I just kind of like her. And I forgot to mention that the fucking pig man comes back. Oh, this fucking guy. And he finally is basically like, well, I ran through all the other people that I thought could maybe help me. And it turns out that you're going to be my best bet, I guess. In this very, like, there's this tone to him that's so condescending. He's very good. And also, he has a lot to say about Julia not being married, but being pregnant. Eventually, though, he talks about the visions being clearer of the coming apocalypse and the people coming out through a tree. And she starts asking questions in a tone of voice that eventually he begins to realize that she's hoping for the apocalypse. She's going to be one of the people that helps to bring it about. And is understandably quite horrified. I'm trying to think of a way that they could, like, do this. And I'm like, couldn't they, here's my thought, couldn't they come up with a new world to put the takers into? Couldn't they, like, use the world seed to create to siphon off the takers into? Or not the takers, they're looking for a place to put the dead. Couldn't they create a new world to put the dead in? Like, basically, once they get let loose, put a bag over the hole and let them filter up into there, and then just, like, you know, pull it out and toss it somewhere. And then they're not, Ember has this whole thing where he talks about how the dead leave a residue on everything, like a pickle on a sandwich, and then just dumps a bunch of pickles all over the map. And honestly, it's a really weird analogy, but, like, is that not super effective? I know that all of us have foods that you can take it off, but my mouth knows it was there. You know, a lot of people talk about that with cucumbers being really strong. And pickle, I definitely as a kid hated pickles. So that was something for me. And olives is another one. Olives have a really strong flavor that they leave behind. And I was just like, you know what? That was an evocative illustration. A weird choice, Ember, but I understand you. And you got to me with that one. So, but yeah, I feel like they're coming at this from the wrong angle, trying to get all of the people out instead of, like, making sure the dead have somewhere else to go instead. But it depends on how, like, the door works, because, I mean, just put the fucking king in the pocket world. Doesn't that make more sense? Get him the hell out of here. Like, just lure him into whatever it is and drop him off in a fucking lake and leave him, because he sucks. He's just very selfish and a bad guy. And I know we're supposed to feel sorry for him and whatever. I just don't. I don't feel bad for him. And it's weird how the show keeps trying to act like I should be sympathetic. Like, okay, he lost somebody he loved, and that does suck. And it's like, it's unfair and it's fucked up. But, like, really, truly get over it. It's been, at this point, like 400 years, right? Christ. Because he, like, lived about 100 years earlier, and then this has been going on for 300 years. So yeah, it's been 400 years. I feel like it's time. Move on, or get dropped off in a pocket world and left to just, roll around on the bottom of a lake someplace in a weird bottle that Ember made. Whatever. All right, I gotta wrap up. But thank you again, Jessie, for commissioning this episode. I'm sorry that I was hard on it, but I think I was fair. I hope that you guys are enjoying the coverage, and I will be seeing you all again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.